We were just talking about cognitive dissonance, and I was explaining that
Mm,
there's a philosopher named Hegel, and he has this
mhm,
thing called dialectics, where essentially you have two ideas, the synthesis, or the thesis and the antithesis, and then
mhm,
the combination of the two creates this thing called synthesis.
mhm.
And like Hegel is like this uh, philosopher who believes that the universe is kind of like a compares it to kind of like a giant brain, and it's like
Mm.
cognitive dissonance where you have this thesis and then this antithesis, and it combines to create the synthesis, but that happens throughout the universe, so every action and its opposite
Interesting.
will combine to create like a third.
Yeah, I've heard, not deeply enough to really say I understand Hegel, but I've heard a little bit about dialectic. I've never heard it
Yeah,
related to cognitive dissonance, though. That's really interesting. You can kind of see cognitive dissonance as a way to grow, as a way to find
yeah.
you have two falsehoods and they become one synthesis, one truth. That's really interesting.
One thing I'll also say is that no one understands Hegel, so you're not allowed.
Yeah.
Wait, why doesn't anyone understand Hegel?
He's just really, really dense, and like he speaks like his writings are really in a old English kind of way. It's really complex.
Hmm.
No one understands it. People will say they understand it. No one understands.
Hey, Tyler.
It,
Yeah, I'm still in the car. I'm almost home.
yeah, no worries. But yeah, yeah. So yeah, Jason, like it is interesting to I think compared to cognitive dissonance, especially because uh, I there are some parts of his kind of writings which talk about the universe as kind of like a giant brain. Like he doesn't obviously think it's a giant brain, but he kind of compares it to one. So
Yeah.
then I always thought like, oh, cognitive dissonance, you know.
Hmm.
What's the cognitive dissonance with Hegel's argument with the giant brain? What's the alter view he
So it's
has?
like in cognitive dissonance, what happens is you hold two conflicting ideas, and then you reckon those into one idea, and it's either the one of the two ideas or a third idea that's created, and with him, the thesis and the antithesis combine to a synthesis, which is like kind of like a third thing, uh, and it happens throughout the universe. Like you'll see like hot and cold combine to create like neutrality. You know, there's a thesis, there's an antithesis, and then it combines and creates a third thing.
Do you
And
know
so
what
the events of the
his?
universe unfold in the same way.
Oh, so the universe entirely has a thesis and antithesis that comes out in a third result.
Like different places, there's like different theses and antitheses. Yeah, like uh like Marx as well. He takes dialectics and then he turns it into this thing called dialectic materialism, where he basically argues that all of history is a struggle between classes, between the haves and have-nots. And so the thesis there is the have-nots, and the antithesis is the haves, and the struggle is creates the synthesis, which is history. So like any struggle, he breaks it down into haves and have-nots, and then creates the synthesis, which is the outcome of that struggle. But, he misses a lot of stuff. But he created this thing called dialectic materialism.
What's diet? What is that?
So dialectics is the thesis, antithesis, and then the synthesis. And then he applies that to materialism, which is like classes. So haves, have-nots.
Hmm.
He's communist, so. Yeah. But it is definitely an interesting dialectics itself is definitely an interesting kind of lens to consider in all of philosophy because you can see kind of theses and antitheses around you, and then you can be like, oh, that's Hegel, you know. So,
Yeah.
how about you, Tyler? What have you been up to?
What? I'm almost home. I'm literally like a minute
Oh yeah,
away.
no worries.
Yeah. And then I'm gonna join on my computer.
Yeah, sure.
Um. So yeah, just give me a second.
Yeah, you're good. Max and you?
What have I been up to?
Yeah.
I've been editing videos and making art all day.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah, I've been working on the video you recorded.
Oh, nice, nice,
It's
nice.
coming out well. Jason, where do you work?
I work at a medical manufacturing company called Integer.
Hmm.
We make tiny little parts. I just do like the operations, so I don't like design anything or anything really tough intellectually. I'm just working at a table all day. But
But
that's
he's
nice
also a
because
writer.
yeah,
Yeah.
my goal would be to be a novelist. If I can get books written and published, that'd be cool. So having a job that doesn't require much thought is nice because I can listen to audiobooks or think about books or all sorts of things.
I like the
Yeah.
dedication. Starving artist, willing to do anything for the pursuit. That's so cool.
Yep.
What's your vision for your books? Do you have an end goal?
Mm. Like my books as a whole, or what do you mean by that?
Anything, whether that be one book or your books as a
Mm.
whole. Do you have any big visions or goals with your writing?
I think I have a lot of book ideas. I think it's just a matter of getting them written and edited and all the just getting them finished, and then I would like to do traditional publishing if I can, but just because I don't want to have to do the extra work of self-publishing. But I'll look into publishing more when I actually have books that I think are good.
How
Yeah,
about your
and
first
eventually.
book?
Hmm?
How about your first one that you finished?
See, the problem with it is it's not very good, and then also it would be the first book in a trilogy, but I
Mm,
don't think it's good enough to want for me to want to finish the trilogy, so
mm.
it would just be a dead end, anyways. Uh, there's a few people who have read it, but it's not like I'm not trying to publish it because it's just I don't think it's how I want to introduce myself, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
How do you
I
want to
don't want to get one
introduce
first
yourself?
with a better book. um, I think it's just not very it's not a very focused book. And one of the characters, there's three viewpoint characters. One of those is just I didn't I don't know what to do with her story. It's not written in a very interesting or
Valid.
meaningful way, so it's kind of just fails on every level. I guess the prose is fine. It's not like there's terrible grammar mistakes or anything. It's just it's not a excellent book. And it's if I were to fix it, I would rewrite it. So I may as well just write a different book if I'm going to rewrite it anyways. So
What
Your
is that
mountain
book?
story sounds very interesting, though.
yeah, yeah, that one's it's going slow, but I'm enjoying it. It's good.
I was talking to Jason Max, and um, he actually incorporates a lot of philosophy as well into his books, which I think was very interesting.
What philosophy do you incorporate in your books?
Hmm. I, a lot, I guess. It depends on how um, granular you get. Um, I could relate the philosophy of my books back to dialectics. I don't know how Hegelian this is, or if this is just what I've decided dialectics means to me, I guess. But just kind of like a dialogue between different characters. So in the book I have finished, um, there's two characters who are well, there's more than two, but eventually they get whittled down to two as characters leave or get killed off. But there's these two characters who are traveling from one part of the world to another part of the world, and throughout the whole time they're encountering situations that bring up their disagreements, and so then they have to discuss these disagreements. A lot of the philosophy in that book is in that character's viewpoint, just discussions between those two characters who are coming into conflict about how to treat people who have a different philosophy than them, and whether or not they just ignore them or to try and convert them, so to speak, or whatever, however you want to. It's been too long since I've wrote that book. I'm forgetting some details, but um, that's one of the ways I can add philosophy is just have two characters who have um, opposing worldviews and put them in situations that make them clash, and then you get a story out of that that is also meaningful.
Yeah, that's dialectics. Nice.
What were the two clashing worldviews? Do you remember?
Let me share it. Let me try and remember it because it is one. It's hard to describe because if it wasn't hard to describe, I would just write an essay instead of a book. But also, it's been how long ago did I write that? It's been a couple years since I finished writing it, so it's been a bit. Um, so they come from a pretty religious culture, monotheistic. Their leaders have they're in a war with a much larger nation that is a different religion than them. Uh, their leaders decided, this is established in the prologue, that's a terrible prologue, but setting that aside, their leaders have decided they're going to send a team to assassinate the emperor of that other nation. I'll use some names so it doesn't get too confusing. Um, Except I forgot the names. That's crazy. Wow, I really forgot this book so much. Um, what is it? I'll just the Empire is the nation they're not from, and then we'll call them the Eldenus. That's what it was. The Eldenus are sending this small team of assassins to assassinate the Emperor. Um, and that's these two main characters. Klumi is the one guy, Aisra is the other guy. And they're, you know, traveling to assassinate the Emperor. But as they go, Klumi more and more is thinking, maybe we shouldn't, kill this guy. Yeah, there's a war on us, but it's not really a just thing to do to kill, just because it's convenient. Um, and so that's I guess the most philosophical I got was in the prologue when they're kind of discussing the plan. But then Aisra and Klumi are kind of living this out in a much more grounded way and just having some high-minded philosophical discussion. Um, I know one of the scenes is um, they're running through a rainstorm in the mountains and they stumble into this tiny little village. To get some small family is taking care of them, just very hospitable, and they're on a secret mission. So one character's like, I don't want to give away anything or help them in any way. I just want to keep it low and move on as quick as possible. The other character, because these guys have healing magic also. So the other character decides he's going to heal one of the people in the house is sick. So he decides he's going to heal them, even though it kind of gives away who they are and stuff like that. So he's like, it's the right thing to do, even if it exposes us. Whatever, I'm going to do the right thing because it's because that's who he is. He's not going to just follow orders, and he's not just going to do the greater good. He's going to do the good that's in front of him. And that happens a couple other times too. Similar situations.
I'd love to read this. This sounds very interesting.
I can send it if you want.
Yes, please do, please do.
All right, I will. I think I have to have an email address for that. I might have changed my permissions on that, but if it's the way I think it is, I think you might need an email address.
Okay, I just sent it in general.
Oh, cool. Excellent.
Max is also used to do a lot of art, like painting and mostly like visual design, graphic design, and computer art. But it's very, very cool.
Have you heard about Rishi's book very much? He's been working on.
I think he mentioned it. Is that the memoir one you're doing?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, he mentioned that.
It's really good. He wrote it on his phone in a month. He was so locked in. He would stay up all night typing on a phone in like a small hut in Thailand.
Nice.
The book is really moving. It has a lot of philosophy. It gets really in depth. I really recommend
It's
it.
pretty dense though. Like it's like Hegel. It's dense.
Yeah.
Have you been thinking about anything recently, Max?
Mainly just pushing myself and overcoming. It's becoming more aligned. I'm getting my schedule more down and locking in. With you back, it's really changed my mindset. But philosophically, not recently. What have you been thinking about?
Um, I've been thinking about human psychology, like just about what makes people do certain things, like group dynamics, kind of. Very interesting. I mean, with the book, kind of like I've been exploring, society, and especially with like the short story in there, it's a commentary on society. So I've been thinking about how society operates a lot just for that.
How do people get engaged in a story, Rishi?
Jason might know better than me about this, but I think I think what I've kind of pinpointed down to, at least maybe, is like two main things. There's like either I'm really, for me, when I read a story, I'm either really interested in the character, like the character really relates to me, and I'm invested in the character because of that, or it just like very intriguing, like they drip feed, information and mystery and it's all about like the stakes. If I'm invested in the stakes of the book, either because I invest in the character or I invest in the plot, like the information is drip feeded, there's mystery, there's something pulling me along, and that's stakes. And so if a book has stakes, then I read it. Or if I've just read enough of it, like with Atlas Shrugged, there's not really anything pulling me along. I've just read, 25% of it, and I have to read the rest.
Why would you finish a book if nothing's pulling you along? That seems so meaningless.
I mean, it's in now. It's like I know there it is. I learned a little bit, and it's an interesting book. Um, it's just not that interesting to keep. Like I have a threshold for how interesting a book is for me to read, and Atlas Shrugged doesn't really. It's close to the threshold, but it doesn't really meet it. But I've read so much of it already that I'm just gonna keep reading.
So wait, Jason, what do you think makes a reader engaged in a story?
Hmm. I think there's probably a lot of things. I think going kind of in a similar way to Rishi, I'll say one of the frameworks I like best. There's an author called Brandon Sanderson who gave some really good advice. I guess it's more of, he gives a framework for how to describe uh, what pulls a reader through a story, and he calls it promises and payoffs. Where at the beginning of a story you make certain promises to your reader, and then in the rest of the story you make a payoff. So one example would be
Hmm.
like if you, I'll use Star Wars as an example. If you start with big action scene with a Star Destroyer hunting down. I should ask, have you guys both seen Star Wars? Okay, awesome, great. So you start with a big Star Destroyer chasing down the Invisible Hand, the little rebel ship, and that implicitly there's a promise there to the not the reader this time, but a watcher, that it's going to be about tiny little rebellion fighting the big empire, and lo and behold, you get to the end of the story, and what happens is tiny little X-wing blows up the big ship, the Death Star. So it's a little payoff or a promise or a foreshadowing, whatever you want to call it, and it's paid off in the end. You can promise all sorts of things though, not just plot wise. You can promise like a character, like Luke Skywalker shows up. It's a classic hero's journey. So when as he follows those beats, you're like, okay, I've seen this story other places. I know what's going on. Or you can promise a tone. So it's a good example of this. In a lot of fantasy books, prologues will typically do this because you want to start with like just a guy in a village somewhere, right? But you also want to have that tone of you know high magic, you know much grander stakes than you know will the harvest be good this year, and so you start with a prologue of some evil sorcerer meeting with his cronies or something, and then you um, go into the main character. But you have that the reader knows that this isn't just about the village. They're going to go out of this village at some point because we've had this set up already. Um, so yeah, just there's another similar principle called Chekhov's gun. If there's a gun hanging over the mantle in a scene, uh, better be fired by the third act is what it is. So don't just have details in there for no reason. Um, but if you have details in there for no, if you don't have details in there for no reason, sounds negative, hard to say. But if you do everything intentionally, then the reader knows if this shows up, it's going to matter. Um, so it's kind of like just building cohesion throughout the story. Um, I think one of the things is kind of like what you were saying. The characters are interesting. Like if it's a character who's feels real and present, and like they have problems that are, I don't want to say relatable, but just human, then it's easy to have empathy for them and want to see where they're going, especially if the story is cohesive with all the promises and payoffs and all that. But obviously, there's a lot more to be said about uh, how to keep a reader engaged. I mean, every word matters. So
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, it's interesting. I guess you do short form content, Max. So how is it different there?
The promises and payoff and
Yeah.
hanging the gun over the mantle. It's the same principles.
Mm.
Like in the first few seconds, you want to display a hook, the most intriguing version of the video, visually and auditorily, and you don't always show the ending to that, the conclusion to the hook, till the very, very end of the video. And throughout the video, you'll give them more payoffs. It's like all storytelling seems like it's the same basic principles, but then you can do it like 10,000 different ways. In your memoir, what are your promises and payoffs?
I think it's the Buddha Rupa, the pilgrimage, and the fact that like, if you touch the hand, you know, you get enlightened. Like that story, that folk tale, the legend, the myth, is kind of like a promise, I guess, that I introduce at the beginning with the map. I don't know, maybe the improvement of the characters, like myself as well, because I'm in a monastery. You know, I talk about why I'm there a little bit. I guess the desire to know why I'm there is an interesting kind of something I promised the reader at the beginning. I say, why am I here? Like I don't know why I'm here in the first chapter, and then they know that by the end they should figure it out. They should have read about why I'm there.
That's a good point.
Interesting, though. I think.
Go on.
No, I think the human brain is kind of wired for this this type of storytelling because, you know, if you look at it, it is very much wired to provide dopamine whenever you see a goal in the future and attain that goal, right? And I think that's kind of what storytelling does. If you promise something, the reader thinks that if they put in enough work to read past a certain point, they're going to reach that goal. And then that happens. And so I think it is kind of wired into us that we are given a vision to see, a goal to want, and then the story naturally has us work towards it, and we feel kind of the struggle of the character to work towards that goal, and then we feel pleasure when that goal is reached because of that. It's interesting.
Is there any other ways to like manipulate the reader to staying?
Like to make it compelling.
Yeah, make it compelling, like their psychology, like where you, like the everything you talked about with the gun over the mantle, and some form of hook. It's all just engaging their brain in a certain way, connecting the wires. Do you know if you can do anything else with writing?
Yeah, there's a principle thrown around a lot. Show don't tell, which essentially means just keep your story concrete instead of really abstract. Kind of just, you know, if I describe it as, well, there's a lot that goes into that, but and I'm gonna struggle to come up with examples off the top of my head. I'm sensing right now. But if I'm like trying to describe, you know, going upstairs to get a drink of water or something, if I just say like I went upstairs, that's not as interesting as I dashed upstairs, because it doesn't give as much information. It doesn't give as much of an image, and so it's less engaging because you're not drawn into the story in the same way. Like you're thinking about things, but you're not like seeing them. That's one way to describe it.
Or like
too. You can also when you're in your descriptions, make sure you're not just doing, you know, visual stuff. It's really easy to just describe things visually, but make sure you're doing like audio and olfactory and all the senses. Not when it's not necessary, but when it comes up, you can definitely throw those in, and it helps immerse the reader more.
I think all of the kind of art mediums have similar themes in terms of keeping an audience. It's seems universal across movies, across books, across podcasts. Uh,
How about video games?
Yeah, I think definitely video games. I think maybe podcasts I don't see as much, um, but video games are, you want to keep it concrete and you want to have promises and payoffs.
With Minecraft, for example, what is the promise when you download Minecraft? It doesn't really seem like.
Yeah,
Is it based on what other
Minecraft is a
people
pretty
say?
good example. I think. Hmm. I think most of the promises, I guess, I was going into as a experiencer of Minecraft when I first got into it was just what people said, and I had done a little. I had played like on my with my one of my neighbor friends on his Xbox. He had Minecraft, but I didn't really get into it until I got it on computer and can play it by myself. But so a lot of the promise is just like, oh, you start just in a plain world. It's just nature around you, but pretty quickly you start building tools, and that same dynamic plays out as you progress closer and closer to diamond tools, if that's what you call your endpoint, or you could, you know, go beyond that. I do think Minecraft is in a way less of a story than most video games. Maybe not most video games, but a lot of video games. So
Jason,
there maybe.
Usually they have like some sort of narrative.
Mhm.
you brought up a really good point. I don't think the story begins once you enter the world, start reading the book or watching the movie. I think it truly begins the first time you hear of the story, whether that's from a friend or an ad. Like, that seems like the true beginning point, the first time you're experienced. Because it creates
Yeah.
those promises, those intentions.
Mhm.
So a story's like so much bigger than what you just create on the paper.
A non-dualistic story. There's no boundaries to be drawn.
Yeah, I was going to
It's
say an
infinite.
even more non-dualistic thing actually. The so part of the how you a reader catches the promises and the payoffs is because they've read similar stories. So like
Mm.
if I'm, watching Star Wars, well, Star Wars is pretty early for me, but if I watching now with fresh eyes, I was watching Star Wars, I would pretty quickly see, oh, he's farm boy on a planet. His parents die. He has to go on this journey. Oh, I've seen this story 100 times. This is the hero's journey. So because I'm familiar with those tropes, when I see them playing out, then I can say, okay, those are promises that I know they're going to be paid off. I recognize those promises because I'm literate in this language of narrative, of like modern Western storytelling narrative. Um, so it's not just the story that allows me to see the promises and the payoffs. It's not just the what I've heard about the story. It's actually the whole um, literature around it that I've consumed
Mm.
that also helps me to see what's going on in the story. Uh, so it's yeah, every story is kind of connected in that way where you can compare stories and even to your own life too. There's definitely yeah.
Huh, that's interesting. What's the most impactful story you guys have encountered? Like books or movies or anything?
Hmm. I think one of the most for me was a series called the Lightbringer
Mm.
series by Brent Weeks. That was I don't know. You guys probably haven't read it, but
I've heard of it. One of my
oh
friends
really?
really
Cool.
recommends it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's a I like that one.
Why do you like it so much?
I think it's very human and the struggles it describes.
Um,
It's one of the characters is um, young boy teenager. He describes himself as a fat kid from Tyria, um, and just like oh man, the author tells this story about the editing process that I think really cuts to one of the reasons why I like this. Um, so he's talking with this editor, and this editor is noting some scenes where the guy he's like a pretty fat kid, so he's running and his pants are falling down because
Mm.
you know, and so he's like in the scene, he's like running and trying to keep his pants up, and the editor is just like, no, that wouldn't happen. He's fat enough it would make the pants stretch and they'd stay on easier, but it's just not authentic to what the experience is actually like. So that's just one example of how the author is making real life. It's just so authentically written. It doesn't shy away from you know details of violence or sex or anything like that. It's very um, sincere and it's very human, and it's not gratuitous with those things. It's not emphasizing them. It's just it's addressing the challenges very honestly, and I really appreciate that. Um, its themes are also just personally interesting to me. There are a lot about confidence and um, to some extent pride and just how you see yourself, and those are things that I hope I've grown in over the course of my life, and they're things that I've thought about quite a lot. So it touches me personally, and it's just well written. Lots of show don't tell going on in that book.
How do
So
you
it
see
immerses
yourself?
you inside the story. Oh, go ahead.
Yep.
How do you see yourself?
Um, hmm. That's I think hmm. That's tough to answer. I think because there's a lot of different ways I see myself. It depends on kind of question you're asking. Um, yeah, I don't know. That's a really broad question.
What are the different ways you see yourself then?
Hmm. I think you could look. I mean, just throw out some really basic options. You could look physically. You could look like biologically, like the system, physical systems, not just physical material. You could look spiritually, which could be broken down into further categories of like psychology or how I fit into my culture or um, what metaphysical traits I have as a human. You could compare me not just to just like what I am compared to other objects, but specifically within humans, like how do I relate to other humans? Am I
Mm.
more confident or less confident? Am I taller, shorter, whatever? Um, I guess there's so many different ways I could answer that question. If there's one you're interested in, I could answer.
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways. Soul, biological, society, your culture, your environment. It's all very intertwined. Do you think there's one way to see yourself among all of these? Like if you had to define it?
Hmm.
Like if someone asked like, "Who are you, Jason?"
Yeah. I suppose there might be one, but I don't know that I have the wisdom to know it. Uh, hmm. I think maybe it's even a thing of language. Like I'm not sure there's that English is or any human language is a good enough language to capture a person in a simple description. I mean, I would even say most words don't really have definitions that work that well for them.
Hmm.
So to define a whole human with a paragraph or something seems really difficult.
I mean, if you think about language, it's based on other words, right? Every word
Mhm.
is based on other words. And
Yep.
so the only words that really have any physical backing are physical objects like
Mhm.
trees,
Yep.
cars. But if every word is based upon other words, then
Yep.
higher concepts
Mhm.
like free will or something like that, it
Yep.
doesn't really have a corresponding material
Mhm.
or experiential really
Yep.
representative, just like a
Yep.
tree or a car does.
Mhm.
And so
Yep.
I think it is oftentimes a lot harder to define a person by words
Mhm.
because of that.
And even tree can be. I mean, we think of it as like oh, a tree is a tree, and there's no way you could think of a language that wouldn't have the word for tree. But there are like, I know Hebrew has a word for tree that's not what we think of as tree. It's like all woody plants. So any like vines would count as that, depending on the vine. It's like it's just a different way of
Ah,
breaking up plants. So even when with things that seem really simple, like there might be a language where it's not so simple as that, and they have slightly different. I like to think of it like Venn diagrams. They have slightly different overlapping circles for how they categorize the
Actually,
world.
I saw something interesting related to that, where it's like there's this tribe in the Amazon that's language doesn't have numbers. They have just
Mhm.
the words for few, some, and many,
Yep.
and then that
really?
influences how they think about like numbers and
Yeah,
objects and stuff like that. So,
I've heard that
do
too.
you guys think that language impacts is like how we influences how we think?
Yeah, for
If you
sure.
raised a kid, the same kid in like different
Yeah,
languages, do you think they would grow up and you kept everything else the same, just their language is different? Do you think they would grow up to be different people?
Yeah.
I think they would.
Huh.
Although I think that that is true of a lot of things. So I think if you raise them like feeding them different things, for example, like there's a lot of small changes over long time make big effects. So if you have even a small change of language, like English to like Spanish or something, where there's a lot of loan words and stuff. But I think like for sure if you teach them like Mandarin or something, I'm sure it's there's parts of that language that are just super different.
If you can change different aspects like nutrition, like language, like the house they grow up in, and it
Mhm.
changes them as a person, is there some fundamental core tenet to them that still exists? Or can you change everything and they become a totally different person with everything?
Ah, I like this question.
Hmm. I think I think in some sense then they would be there's no core to them, I think. But I think that only works in a world where there are all these different possibilities that exist in
Mm.
actuality. But I guess the way I see time is there's one timeline. It's not like the future is many possibilities. It's just it exists already. We just haven't gotten to it yet, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that
Um,
makes sense. Have you heard of many worlds, the many
I
worlds
have,
theory?
yeah, I
Yeah.
have, but
You
I
don't you don't
disagree
believe
with it. So no, yeah. Is that the one that where it's like every single possibility has a different world and it's like
exist.
just put
Yeah,
yeah
exactly. All
yeah I mean
quantum
it's
states collapse into a different world.
yeah
We were talking about quantum states before, right? So instead
mhm,
of just that poster, it's like there's a
right
bunch of different ones. Yeah.
yeah I guess it does make a little bit more sense
Mm.
thinking through the lens of quantum mechanics, but it still feels kind of like well if there's every possibility then what even is reality at that point, like it's just you know yeah, and then other possibilities influence other possibilities, so you pretty quickly get to an infinite amount of worlds, which is I don't know. It's one thing you could believe in, I guess, but
And then the other question is why this world and why am I experiencing consciousness in this world,
mhm.
awareness in this
Yeah.
world and not any
Well,
others?
I would assume that every possible well, not every possibility, but all the possibilities that have humans would have conscious humans. I
But
suppose
the
maybe
question
there's
is
a
why am I not experiencing consciousness? Like you know what I mean, right? You experience awareness in
mhm,
in this timeline and no others.
right.
Even though
Well,
those rishis might be experiencing consciousness, why am
mhm.
I not their consciousness? Why am I this
Oh
conscious?
yeah,
I think
I don't.
about
I
this
think
all the
well,
time.
It's kind of like a soul question. Like why is
yeah.
if you were to think about it like that?
I think well, someone has to be this consciousness, right? It's like why did I grow up in Minnesota of all places instead of any other square mile on the globe? Like someone has like it's just it happened and its particularities aren't surprising if you just hmm, let me try and find a way to phrase this. Uh, there's a lot of really surprising coincidences in history uh, that but it's but given how much there is to history, how many events happened, it's not surprising that some of them are surprising.
Mm.
I think a similar thing you could say, like, well, it's not surprising that someone ended up being there, and if it's someone, why not me?
Mm. So
Like, what
then
do you
no
think?
fundamental tenant runs through the core, right?
kind of, but only if you assume that there are many different possibilities. But I wouldn't say there's many possibilities. I think there's one. There's one possibility. There's one thing that happens or happened or will happen, and so there is one person. But if there were multiple possibilities, I would have to say then they would be two different people, and then each person, I suppose, would have their own identity. But
If
with
there's
one timeline,
if there's one possibility, would that mean our universe is deterministic?
kind of, I think. I
We were talking
talking
about this.
Yeah, we were talking about this earlier. Uh, so my idea would be essentially, so the universe. I personally am theist, so I believe that God set up a universe, and it's playing out according to His will, right? Um, One of the things, though, that I believe about God is that He's not inside of time. He created time, so He's outside of it. So He's not like experiencing time the way we are. He's looking at it as though it's a line. He's outside of it, looking in on it. He can go into the past. He can go into the future at any point. He can touch whatever he wants at any time, because not any time, because He's outside of time. It's kind of hard to describe because we don't have language for that. But because He's outside of time, then it doesn't matter when we have desires or even come into existence. He can um, act on our behalf. He can give us free will, so to speak. um,
What is the free
regardless
will
of
that He
time.
gives us then?
What is the free will?
Mhm.
um, I think primarily I think it's to choose between right and wrong is why I believe in it, because I believe in right and wrong as just one of my base assumptions. And in order for me to believe in that, I think I have to believe in free will. And so I say, because without, essentially what I mean by free will is we're responsible for our actions, which is the
Um,
basis of right and wrong. Um, so then I say however he does that, I'm not sure, but I do believe that there is a God who um, gives us free will so that we have responsibility to do right and wrong. Does that answer the question, or is that different from what you were asking?
What question did I ask in the first place?
Oh, it was I think it was what kind of free will do we have, or something like that. And I think it was Rishi who asked it.
Oh, I asked the question. Yeah, I did ask the question. Yes, yes, it does answer.
Wait, so
Yeah, I mean, I guess
do you define free will as the ability to choose between right and wrong?
Yes, I would. Yeah.
Do you think
And
there's parts where we don't have free will? Like parts of our life?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, just as an easy demonstration, I can't, snap my
Why?
fingers and turn into a kangaroo. Like there are limits to what I can do. Um, but I
Why
would
are we
say,
given those limits?
that's an
I think,
interesting question.
yeah, I think one of the reasons is because there's a lot of people who all have free will, but that means we can't have total free will because we're going to conflict with each other, and you know that means we can't. Only one person can have absolute authority. Otherwise, you just disagreements. So that's one reason. Um, I think it's
Wait,
possible. Yeah, go ahead.
does that mean God is the only one that has true free will, and then everyone else has an abstraction of free will?
Yeah, I would say free will within boundaries, maybe. Or yeah, that's probably a good way to say it. Um, or maybe I think maybe an even better way to say it would be to have like we have free will to ask, but pending on his acceptance of our request. So you could think of it like um, you can go like let's say there's a kingdom and you have a bunch of different states within the kingdom and you can travel between them, but you have to like if you get
Apply
stopped
for
at
a
the
visa.
border for any reason, like you can be stopped at the border, but you're allowed to go through unless you're like a criminal or something. Um, so you have freedom of travel, but pending on law enforcement.
Ah, I
Does that make
admire
sense?
how deeply you think about your beliefs. You really go into them.
Yeah. Thank
I
you.
respect that a lot. So, if I'm presented with two choices,
Mhm.
is it always free will, or is it ever a deterministic decision based on my past events?
I think I lean towards free will on a just on a like a I would rather be wrong in assuming I have free will than be wrong in assuming I don't, if that makes sense. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yeah.
Um so I would lean towards free will, but I think there's probably things where it's like, like if you touch a hot pan and you pull your hand away, like I could say, yeah, your body is part of your identity, so you were the one making the decision to do that. But in another sense, you're like that's just your body, like it doesn't even get to your brain; it stops at your spine
Mm.
um, for those really quick reactions. And there's like instinctual things, but I think I lean towards it's generally you should generally take responsibility for your actions, whether they are your actions or not. Maybe just err on the side of responsibility, but that's more of a disposition than an answer.
So is it like a continuous free will then? Like not decisions per second, but
Mm.
like a continuous stream because it doesn't stop.
Yeah, yeah. It's like I mean, ultimately, like free will is every choice is from yourself. So it's I maybe I don't have the words to describe this. I think it's easy to talk about ethics as actions and results or stuff like that. But I think real ethics is not talking about the actions; it's talking about the motivations behind the actions and the
Mm.
self behind the motivations. Like really talk about instead of you know I lied a few times, like I am a liar, or instead of I did whatever I showed up for work on time, I'm integrous, something like that. So then when you're talking about continuous free will, it's like you're continually being yourself in a way. I don't know if that
And
makes
I've been
sense or if it just confuses more, but
no, that makes sense. It's like kind of like the interaction of like a color with other colors, and then the mixes create like decisions. I don't know, but I I think I kind of agree about it being kind of continuous like that, like a
Mhm.
reflection. I have an interesting dilemma though for you guys, both of you, an ethical one. If a cop runs like a stop sign, it's a real story. If a cop runs like a stop sign and hits like a kid,
Oh, yikes.
what should the punishment be? Because he only intended to run the stop sign, he didn't intend to hit the kid, but he hit the kid.
Oh, like lights
So
flashing? Okay.
no,
No, so he's
no,
just
that's
like
not.
he's driving like a normal person
Yeah.
and he hits the kid.
Mhm.
I mean, I
His
would just,
intention was just to
yeah,
run the stop sign.
right. I don't know, what would you say, Max?
In an ideal world, we do not have enough resources, but placing him in some form of facility with experts on psychology and his background, and he's stuck into the facility until he learns enough about himself and the universe to a point where he's allowed to get back. I don't know what the threshold would be. It would have to be very circumstantials based on his background, his personality. I would ideally, the more testing, the better. In a way, that would almost be like brainwashing, though. If a person commits a
Mm.
crime, they're stuck in a facility until they learn to a certain point to go back into society. I guess it would work if ethically you had the right values behind the brainwashing. Otherwise, it would become a very corrupt system.
Yep, that's true.
What do you think?
So was the question what
How
should be
should he be
done?
punished? Yeah, what
How
should
should
be
he be
done?
punished? Okay. So I would say do what the law says would be my
Mm.
um, opinion.
So based on outcome, not intention.
Yeah, but I think I say that though, like, like, hmm, how can I describe that? I say that though, like legally speak, like I
Uh,
think you should follow the law. Like Whether or not the law should be changed, that's a different question.
If you could control the law, if
Right.
you had
Yeah.
power to decide what.
See, the
Oh.
other thing here is like the policeman probably knows his intention was only to run the stop sign, but the law can't determine that. So when you're making laws, you kind of have to treat outcome instead of just treating intention, just for like, you know, the practical reasons. You can't um, go back in time and read people's minds. Both of
Would
those are
God's
impossible.
law be based on outcome or intention?
I think it would be intention, but I don't know for sure.
It only works though if
Yeah.
you, I guess, know the intentions.
Yeah, but God would like God's law is different from the justice system, I would say.
Mm.
So like, what's a good example of that? Um, hmm. So God's law would have things like, you know, don't worship idols or something like that.
Mm.
But putting that into justice system would be a mistake, I think. Or here's a good example: drinking, for example, like drugs or alcohol. I don't think they're healthy. I would suggest most people don't do them. But and I think, well, this is maybe arrogant, but I think God would agree. Um, you know, that's just what I believe. Um, but to put that into the justice system is more than just arrogant because I might be wrong about it, but it's just not practical. We tried that, and I don't remember when we tried that at some point, and
Probation.
it became a black market issue
Probation.
instead of a legal issue, and so it was more of a problem. So there are problems with trying to turn God's law into human law because humans can't enforce perfectly. We don't have all knowledge. We don't have all power.
Not yet, anyway. All cosmic knowledge.
Sure. Yeah.
Rishi, what would you do with the stop sign situation?
You know, it's
Ideally.
interesting. They ran this study asking participants what they would do. And they used neurotech in the study, and they discovered when a certain part of your brain is deactivated with ultrasound or magnetic stimulation, you're more likely to judge them based on the outcome of the action and not the intent of the action. And when that part of your brain is turned on, you're more likely to judge them by the intent of the action and not the outcome of the action. So it's really just a part of your brain that determines what the ethical implications are. I personally, I also lean towards intent. What was the original intent of the action? So that was just running the stop sign. But I do think that they should be punished a little more severely because ultimately, what's the point of the law? It's to encourage future criminals not to do so. So if someone, if someone is wanting to maliciously harm another person, and they saw this cop that got off scot-free just because he said, "I only intended to hit to run the stop sign," then they would use the same excuse. So the law must be applied as well to make it so that that action is negatively reinforced in society. So I think I would lean towards a less harsh punishment, but still something in accordance to the law.
Do you think the law should 100% be aligned with your philosophy?
I think everyone thinks that.
Is there
Or at
any
least
ways?
most people.
I would go back to what I was saying earlier about like alcohol drinking, for example. I don't drink, and I guess I think that's a good thing not to drink. But you know, we tried it with the law and it didn't work. There's things like that, and there's other things that are just hard to enforce. So I would say
Would you
I
keep
don't
it
think
legal?
everyone would agree with that.
If you
Keep
had
what?
that power to make it illegal,
Yeah,
would
I
you
would.
keep it legal?
Yeah.
Oh,
I
really?
mean, if it's a matter of enforcement, that's a different question. Um, but if it's just a matter of putting it into law or not, then
Uh,
I would keep it legal.
The law doesn't have enough power to enforce every decision. There's certain ones you have to just let go based on what we have right now. Rishi, what part of the brain affected whether someone focused on the intent or outcome?
it was I don't remember what it's called, but it's based on the purpose. So it's the part of your brain that deals with purpose and with determining not just the purpose of different things, but your own purpose. And so it's a very kind of holistic neural group. I can send you the specific one when I get a chance, but it is quite interesting because when you think about purpose, sometimes you tend to think that maybe my own purpose and what I decide for it might be a little separated from what I view others' purpose to be. Uh, but it's all the same neural group. It just fires at different times. Like it's kind of like a network of relationships, and when multiple neurons, like the neurons that correspond to my and then the neurons that correspond to purpose fire together, that creates my purpose. When the neurons for society and purpose fire together, that creates societal purpose. So it's pretty interesting that way.
Theoretically, if I was able to change the part of your brain and the set of neurons that defined your purpose, could I change your purpose?
I think so. With neurotechnology, you could.
So I could completely
This study
brainwash
shows
you.
that pretty much. What was that?
I could completely brainwash you.
Yep. Hey,
With
your
the-
your brainwashing reform idea could be.
Oh yeah. Wait, with
We don't
the
need therapists. We just need electricity.
with the work principle that we talked about, Rishi.
yeah.
Here's my notes. About the possibility of free will in quantum systems. Instead of observation happening from outside the system, it happens interiorly. Do you think with that possibility of free will, even if I changed your purpose, your other purpose would come back?
I think so. With that perspective, I think so. Yes. No matter what you do, it would come back because it's kind of fundamentally built in to the system.
That's interesting.
If you I don't know that enough about neurotechnology. This might be completely off base, but if you're firing the not your initial purposes, you're firing the second purposes enough, would they become strong enough to I guess fight against or conflict with or
It
be a
would be.
viable trigger? Okay, so if you do it consistently enough, could it make the other one atrophy?
It could. That's usually what cognitive dissonance is. It's you start to learn enough about another belief, and that
Right.
strengthens that belief, and then those
Mhm.
two start to conflict, and so you got to either choose one of those two or merge them somehow.
Yeah.
What if you don't? Could you endlessly be in a battle between the two? Or would that just be
You
a
could,
waste
you
of
could.
energy?
And some people are, and it makes them very unhappy
Oh, like a person that struggles with alcoholism. They're in a constant battle
because they
between
don't
the
want
Mm.
exactly.
That's so intriguing.
And I
So-
guess that kind of also assumes the free will, cognitive dissonance, because you got to choose between one of those two, and so it is more of a free will discussion with that.
Hmm.
So
If
how have you?
there-
What have you? See, have you looked into OKR?
Yeah, quite a bit.
Oh, nice. So, Jason, this was what we were talking about like a little earlier, the whole free will on a quantum mechanical level.
Mhm.
And just to recap, it's like, the quantum wave function will collapse into classical mechanics at a certain point, but we don't know how it collapses. And so Roger Penrose, proposes that uh, it knows already how it collapses, and then it goes back in time and collapses it at that specific place. And so that means that if the wave function can know in the future how it collapses and decide based upon that, if effect determines cause as well as cause determines effect, and there is no such deterministic chain of events. There's no cause, effect, effect, effect. And so it gives credibility to the idea that, maybe there's some sort of universal wave function that has free will in a sense. And the way that it's tied into neuroscience is that we have these little things called microtubules in our brain. And in these microtubules, they're small enough for quantum effects to happen in them. So they're the only part of our brain that's small enough for quantum effects to happen. And there's this guy named Stuart Hameroff who worked with Penrose and did essentially studies to determine whether or not free will can occur based in the brain in these microtubules. And so he argues that quantum effects in those microtubules create your idea of free will, and create your free will. He's basically like an anesthesiologist, and so their experiments focused on using anesthesia to take people out, to lessen the basically the effects of the quantum mechanical microtubule system. Basically, how that works is they have these microtubules that have the quantum effects, and then there's a part of your brain that processes all of that information of the quantum effects, and then creates your free will based on that. And so they use anesthesia to dampen that middleman, that processing capability. And they did some experiments, and they sort of have information on it that corresponds to
Yeah.
proving the theory, and they sort of don't. So we'll see.
If they were able to prove that theory, it would be like all points are core. They're all trying to align to one possible outcome.
I mean, yeah, if you take the wave function as a whole across the entire universe, like it does mean that then they all are kind of interconnected in a way, trying to correspond to do one thing.
All cosmic knowledge.
It's interesting.
Even with that, like, if a system if we're all conveying to one point as the wave function as a whole, it still doesn't really seem like free will is such an abstract idea when you try to define it. And if we're all truly just conveying to one point with this principle, it doesn't really seem like that's free will either.
I mean, the thing is, free will is more of an experiential concept. You know, like I can feel free will when I do something, when I make a decision, but I can't not feel free will. So it's really we just haven't found the science yet really to define it properly. It's like if I went to Mars and met a Martian and I told him, "Oh, I planted this tree the other day." And then he asked me, "What's a tree?" He doesn't have any trees on his planet, so I can't really say what it is. I say, "Oh, it's made of wood and carbon-based atoms." And he says, "What's wood? What's carbon-based atoms?" And so, you know, it leads to a cycle where he hasn't had the proper material information, the proper scientific information for me to communicate with him. And I think it's the same way with free will. We just don't have the proper science to be able to talk about the concept itself.
I think the Martian has never experienced a tree,
Mhm.
but we've experienced free will. So I think it's like what kind of science? What do we need to experience before we can talk about free will? Like, what
I
is it
think
we're
we
missing?
can talk about it like socially and know what we're talking about. If we tried to talk about it kind of scientifically or really build upon it, like you know, you take axioms of math and then you build upon those. And usually that works because those axioms are stable. Free will is not stable. It's fluid because everyone has an
Yeah.
experience of it and we kind of don't know what we're talking about. So we can talk about it colloquially, but we can't build upon it because building upon it requires that it has a foundation. And it just doesn't right now.
Yep.
But what if you guys were experiencing the illusion of free will, thinking it's free will, when we're really in a deterministic universe? Like, we really don't know. Sure, you can have the experience of free will, but couldn't that be the experience of the illusion of free will?
It could be. It could be. But we also don't know what fake free will would feel like because we haven't felt fake free will. Or we have felt fake free will and we don't know what real free will would feel like. So
Yeah.
I think we probably don't know, but we have to pretend to know, if that makes sense.
yeah.
Because we're going to be making decisions based on whether we are responsible or not responsible, and those decisions are going to show what we believe. So I mean, we can think about what it would be like to not have free will, but when it comes down to it, I mean, I believe in free will, and that's seen in how I act, and at least I hope it is. uh,
Do you think there's a greater purpose to the universe?
who are you asking, me or?
Jason.
Yeah, I do. Yep.
Do you think we can know it?
I think it depends on what knowing means. I think analogy of what exactly I mean by that is like what it means to know a tree, for example. I've seen trees. I know they're made of wood, but someone who's a biologist will know a lot more about what it means to be made of wood than I will, because they'll be able to talk about cellular structure and all that. And some like a biologist who's just got a bachelor's will know a lot less than someone who's got a master's in specifically whatever arborology or whatever the actual name of that is. But someone who studies trees, like specifically like the chemistry of trees, will know what it means. Like they'll know the substance of trees much more than I will. It's not that I don't know trees; it's that I don't know it with a level of specificity or the level of, I guess, how zoomed in. I guess. In a similar way, I think we can know the purpose of the universe, but not with definitely not with certainty, and not with granularity either. Where
Unless we know everything.
sure,
Like
yeah,
if you were,
but yeah,
Yeah.
I think though knowing everything, I think it sounds more than difficult. I think I know I'm going to disagree with you guys a lot on that, but that's the whole purpose. But I think just as a simple thought experiment to throw out there, what it means to know everything in a physical way would be able to represent every single atom and its motion, right?
Mm.
But in order to have that amount of data, you have to use all of the data that is the universe to store it. I don't know if
I
that
wouldn't
makes
say that's necessarily true. I wouldn't say
Yeah.
so. If
Yeah.
you could have that point in infinite dimensional space, I know we talked about it a little bit
Okay,
in
yeah,
the
yeah.
chat. Theoretically, if you could have a point, and you could encode into it information of every other point, you
Right.
could contain all of the knowledge. So there's a little bit of discussion of pure math here, because there's these types of infinities called countable infinities and uncountable infinities. And essentially, countable infinities are like natural numbers. So you have, integer numbers. So you have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You've countable. Uncountable infinities are anything that is real numbers. So like half, a quarter, a third. Because between 0 and 1, you have so many of these numbers, and if you zoom in to a particular
Right,
set,
you'll get
you have more of them, and you keep zooming in, you keep having
yeah,
more.
that's a problem.
These are called uncountable infinities.
Yeah.
And essentially, what has been proven is that if the universe has a countable set of information, we could map it one for one onto that point. If it's uncountable, it would be harder. Though I still think it's possible. The math is a little funky there, but it's a little. I think it's possible. And there's an even more interesting kind of discussion of math here, which is that there are essentially, if you think about the universe as kind of a space, and there's different things happening in the space. One of the things that could be in the space is a smaller subset of that larger space. So like a fractal. If you've seen like the Mendeleev triangle or the Sierpinski triangle, here I'll send it to the chat. I love this kind of comparison. If you take the Sierpinski triangle and then look at the smaller, just so you guys can reference it, I'll put it in the chat. Okay, you take this triangle. Oh, it's cut off a little bit. You take the triangle, and you look at the bottom left triangle. What do you see? You see another one of the bigger triangle. And then you look at that bottom left triangle, and you see the same thing, another one of the bigger triangle. And you keep going down, and you keep seeing the same triangle over and over again. And there is math that says that the universe could be like this, where it's not all the same. It's not, this is like a complete fractal where every single part of it is the fractal. It could be that the top right corner and the bottom right corner are, two different shapes, and then the bottom left corner is the fractal. And so there's a smaller version of the fractal somewhere within the entire shape. And there is math that says that our universe could be like that. So theoretically, if we just go up to that smaller portion and observe it and analyze it, we could be able to gain complete knowledge of the larger picture as well.
So it's like, let me try and throw out another metaphor. If I'm trying to count or give you the information of every single number, every single integer that exists, 0 through infinity, as much as you say 0 through infinity. Like I could count them off, but that would take forever. We don't have time for that. Literally forever. But if I just say the set of all numbers or the set of all integers or something like that, it's a shorthand way of indicating the pattern so then you're not storing all the numbers, you're just storing the pattern that
exactly
gives rise to all those numbers.
Exactly.
That's interesting.
Exactly. You actually stumbled upon like another great kind of pure math analysis of this, which is, it's called the axiom of choice versus the axiom of determinacy. And so it's saying that if you have those kind of shorthands, you can't actually construct all infinite numbers, all integer numbers, but you can say, the set of all integer numbers. If you use that, can we build math upon that? And so there's two schools of mathematicians. There's one that believes in the axiom of choice and one that believes in the axiom of determinacy. The choice one believes that, this is like 90% of mathematicians fall into the school of choice. They believe that, yes, you can build proofs and other math upon that smaller set where you don't actually list out everything, you just list out a shorthand. They believe that. But then there's a small group of like 10% of mathematicians that believe that, no, you shouldn't be able to do that. And so they actually work, their field actually works on only proving things based on things that we can list out and we can physically do. They're called constructionists, and it's a very interesting field of math, but they've also proved that a lot of the things that we can construct with those shorthands can be constructed with the longer forms as well. So the shorthands don't necessarily take away from anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
One of the most natural questions to kind of extend from here is, why are some infinities countable and why are some uncountable, right? Like, can you actually conceptualize why that happens? And one of the best kind of proofs of this is called Cantor's diagonalization proof. It's that, say I take all of the real numbers between 0 and 1, and I list them all out in a list. And I go and I take the first one. I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and in a list, and then after 1 there's a number, after 2 there's a number, after 3 there's a number. I list them all out. If I take that first number and I say I'm going to create a number where that first digit of the first number is anything but what that number has. So say the first digit of the first number is 2. It's 0.2. Then I'm going to take any number besides that. I'll take 3. So my number that I'm constructing is 0.3. Then I move to the second number. And I look at the second digit of the second number. So say the second number is 0.19, and then blah, blah, blah. I take something other than 9. And so now my number is 0.3, let's say 8. And then I take the third number, and I take the third digit of that third number, and I say I'm going to construct a number that has anything but that third digit of that third number. And then I put that in my number. And I go down the list infinitely, because all these numbers are infinitely long, right? So I go down my list, and I create a number that does not match the first number in the first digit, does not match the second number in the second digit, does not match the third number in the third digit, and it keeps going down. It does not match any of the numbers. So I've created a whole new number, even though I've listed all the numbers. And so that proves that you can essentially create infinitely many numbers. Even if you've listed all of the numbers, you can still create more. And this doesn't work with regular infinities. With countable infinities, this doesn't work. With uncountable infinities, it does work. So you can think about uncountable infinities kind of like a fluid, like it's a continuous spectrum, versus countable infinities are discrete. You have discretely infinite many things in countable infinities. You have continuously infinitely many things in uncountable infinities. Does that make sense?
I don't think I get it.
I don't either.
I don't think that's your fault.
How can an infinity be countable versus non-countable?
Countable means you can map another infinity to it, basically. So if I take if I take 2, then 2 squared, then 2 cubed, then 2 to the 4th, and I keep going infinitely, I can map each of those numbers onto an integer number. So let's say 1 matches up with 2, then 2 matches up with 4, then 3 matches up with 8, then 4 matches up with 16, and I match each of those numbers to each other. And I can do that with countable infinities. I cannot do that with uncountable infinities. There will just be so many. It's like saying there's so many more uncountable infinities than there are countable infinities. Infinities are
But they're both
different
infinity,
lengths.
yeah. I think what comes to my mind with the uncountable is, I mean, you said the numbers between 0 and 1. So like you could think of like 0.1 would be the next number above 0, or you could say 0.01, but
Yeah.
actually it should be 0.001 or
Exactly.
0.0001. That goes infinitely. So you can't even get to the first number because the first number is infinitely small.
Exactly.
So you can't even get to the first number.
Yeah. It's like it's saying I have infinity raised to infinity, raised to infinity, and then that goes for infinity. It's just that many.
With math and communicating with other species like aliens, do you think there will ever come to a point where our math is so advanced that it'll be like a language and we no longer need to use these words based on assumptions? Instead, we can use math to tell someone what a tree is.
I actually disagree with most mathematicians on this. They believe that you could, theoretically, you communicate with an alien with math or something. I don't think that's true. I think our math is based upon our reality. So sometimes people think physics is built upon math. I actually think physics is the fundamental kind of pillars of math, because the way we construct our reality in our brain very much determines how we think about it. So for example, with that tribe in the Amazon that has language for some, few, and many, but not for actual numbers, their math is very different from our math. And that's just their language that's different. Imagine if their entire reality is different. So with aliens, their entire reality might be different. They might have never seen a tree. They might have never seen a planet. They might have senses we don't have. They might have we might have senses they don't have. We might be in entirely different places in rural space. Rural space is like the space of observation. Like the colors we see, the senses we have, stuff like that. They might just be in a completely different space where they have different senses. They see different colors. They see everything differently. And so because of that, their math might be completely different as well, because their math is based on their physics, based on the assumptions they make about the world. All of our math is based upon assumptions, upon axioms, and our axioms are based on the physical world. So one of our axioms, for example, might be that if 1 plus 2 equals 3, then 2 plus 1 equals 3. Either way, whether you switch the numbers, it's always going to be 3. Maybe their rural space doesn't have that axiom as consistent. So the reason we could say that is because perhaps when we mix red and blue, it creates a color purple, and then when we mix blue and red, it creates the color purple. And so intuitively, when we think about it, it's always going to be the same no matter what. But perhaps in their world, something happens where when you mix two spectrum of light, if you mix them differently, it doesn't create the same color. And this could be true because in quantum mechanics, for example, quantum mechanics isn't a good reference point. Well, there are physics principles that where order does matter, essentially. So, like general relativity. Basically, like you can have an observer, and the place where the observer is matters to when the order of events happens. And so, regardless of the order happens, red first or blue first, it's going to be different for the observers. So if their world, if their senses are more attuned to that, are less attuned to locality, which our senses are, to the fact that two things that happen in close proximity will always create the same result, no matter which order they're in. If their senses aren't attuned to locality like our senses are, then their mathematics might be completely different. Maybe 1 plus 2 doesn't equal 3 the same way as 2 plus 1 equals 3. So I think it's very much determined by how we view reality. And so physics is more of kind of that fundamental baseline. And so the only way I think we could communicate with them would be to start to expand our senses, our rural space, start to learn more and experience more. And they must have to do the same. We must have some overlap in rural space in order for us to communicate. Like trying to communicate with the weather.
That's so beautiful. It's like we have to diverge on one single point in space and time with them to align. And it might, with all cosmic knowledge, theoretically, if that
We
point,
can talk to everything.
you could talk to everything. It would be aligned with everything, all your senses.
Have you watched the movie Arrival?
No.
It's very good. It's about like how it's a very kind of more realistic depiction of how we would talk to aliens if they came. And it's very interesting because in the movie, their language is not linear. So in our language, for example, we have the cat jumped over the fence. I say the, then cat, then jump, then over the fence. And because of that, because it's a sentence where order matters, I can't just say cat, fence, jumped, I can't say it in any order. I have to say it in a specific order. Because of that, the movie basically says our brains interpret time the same way, sequentially. But the aliens, their language is all at once. So they put a symbol that's like a circle-looking thing, and you look at the symbol at once, and it's all of those words put together. And so they just see that sentence like at one time. So their brain processes information not sequentially, but all at once. And so it's very interesting because in the movie, the person who's assigned to go speak to them starts to learn their language, and then their brain starts to work in that way, and they start to experience time more as a point. A very good movie. Very good movie. I highly recommend it. It's interesting. Dennis Fair. By the same guy that directed Dune.
Oh, nice.
No, I have no idea how to pronounce his last name, but
Rishi, do you think our math system objectively is terrible based on the axioms that we have?
no. But I think there's flaws. There's big flaws. Like Gödel's incompleteness theorem. I don't like people have just come to accept that. I don't think like we should just completely accept it. There are ways I think of getting around it. Like basically it says that the axioms, because we have finite axioms, there will always be some incomplete statement or inconsistency within the system. And that's true if you consider the fact that one, you have tools of the system that are separate from the axioms. So for example, a tool might be this statement is provable, this statement is unprovable. That is a tool that you use. And because of that, you have an outside observer, me, the mathematician, looking at the system and imposing my tools upon the axiom, the structure that the axioms create. But because of that, then there will always be things outside of the system because I am outside the system. And if I'm outside the system and I apply tools, I'm always going to apply tools that might not necessarily be within the axioms of the system. But if you combine the tools and the axioms, then the only structures that the axioms can build are the ones that are, one, self-consistent, so they don't say statements that are both false and true, like 1 equals 2. They don't say that. And that are complete, because you essentially don't have a statement that the axioms will prove as true. So basically, like, what complete means is that the structure itself proves everything that it needs to prove, kind of like that. Yeah.
I have a hard time imagining a world without any form of axiom. Like, everything would. What would that even look
Think
like?
about it kind of like if you had infinite axioms.
If I had infinite axioms, it would just be
See,
like
we think
infinite
about it
ways
like a
to learn.
forest. We think about it kind of like a tree, and the branches of the tree are like the the proofs.
Hmm.
But I don't think that's the right way to think about it. Like, and there's axioms are the trunk of the tree. And if you look at the entire forest, there's a bunch of axioms, and the branches, intersect and everything. I don't think that's the right way to look at it. I think it's more like an ocean, and there's like everything is axioms. Everything is proofs that you can derive from those axioms. It's a lot more interconnected.
Would there be a point with no axioms, theoretically?
Yeah, but it would look the same as a point with every axiom.
Oh, you're just understanding the means to the axioms.
Yeah, it's like kind of like there's no fundamental. There's just uh kind of uh codependent origination in a way. It's like one thing and the other thing both create each other, and that's true with everything. It's not that one thing leads to the creation of the other.
That'd be so beautiful. Like, things even as simple as, like,
I mean,
what is one in
there are
math?
systems. Yeah, exactly. And there are systems of math that kind of try to model this. They're just not focused on a lot. So, you know,
Are we even able to model this? Seems
very
out of our
basically.
reach. Oh,
Very,
very
we
basically.
can model little things.
How would you model it basically?
Like we have non-axiomatic math. Like here, I'll show you. Um,
I just, I don't understand how you could, like, have a math system without any form of assumption. That would be
it's
non-axiom.
if you take all of the assumptions at once, then it's kind of more uh, easier to think about, because that's very similar to taking no assumptions. Because if you take all the assumptions, then that
Uh,
means even things that are created are foundational as well. So it's still codependent kind of origination. Um,
so taking every axiom ever,
mm,
so one can equal anything.
Not necessarily. You could have a system like that. Like in some parts of the system, it could be like that, but in other parts of the system, it could not be like that. So one could only be one. It's like
Oh, because you have to
parts of the
represent
world.
everything.
Yeah, and you can kind of explore that
Ah,
space. That's what math is. It's a like everything happens, but you explore specific parts. Like if I go around the world and I uh I explore the different languages, like we were saying, trees in Arabic might be vines and this and that and that other, but trees in English might just be trees. And so it's different in different parts of the world. Just like that, in this system of math with no axioms, it's different in different parts of the math, if that makes
hmm.
sense.
But
It's hard to
it would
explain.
it would
And
still
it's
be like there are this system has these axioms, this system has these axioms. You're just able to speak all the languages. Like
exactly,
you're able to switch
exactly.
between systems.
And it's like infinitely many languages
Yeah.
too, all the languages that there could be.
Hmm.
It keeps, when we talk about this, many worlds, that theory just keeps coming into my head with math. It's so similar.
I actually don't agree with many worlds as well. I'm with Jason on this.
I don't know very much about it. Why do you disagree with it?
It just doesn't make sense to me that everything everywhere is happening. Because this is I talked about this with you a little bit, Max. basically the uniformity of the universe. Is the universe completely uniform? If you look around, it's not. It is asymmetric. It is non-uniform. The question is, why is it non-uniform? If you have a point that just spontaneously created the Big Bang, then why does that point not create a uniform universe? And that question is resolved kind of more in many worlds theory, because then if you combine the aggregate of all the worlds, then you get somewhat of a uniform universe. The thing is, that still doesn't explain the asymmetry of why I don't experience consciousness in those other worlds as well. So there still is an asymmetry there that is not reconcilable. So I don't know, it just doesn't... We don't have enough information on it, and it doesn't seem to make sense to me.
With the math without axioms, though, 1 can equal infinity in one part of the system, and 1 can also equal some other form of assumption, like 1 equals 1 in another part of the system.
But remember, math is not fundamental. Physics is. Because we must have a universe before we can create math. See what I mean? Like, you must have particles to have brains to create math.
How similar is math to a language?
It's actually very similar. It is incredibly similar.
When I think of math, especially when you get to like the fundamental, what is it? I think of it as kind of just a way to, exactly like a language. Like, so if I want to, have 3 apples, I can say 2 apples plus 1 apple. There's 3 apples there. But that's just like a way of abstracting from the physical, not even physics, like just physical objects. Then you can abstract that to physics. You can abstract that to mathematics. Exactly. It's all just ways of describing it. Yeah, I don't know.
No, I completely agree.
That's where mine's been going in this whole topic. Although I do think, though, the idea of speaking infinite languages, or like speaking all the languages, like you're still... no, I'm forgetting the thought I had with that. That's annoying. So you're saying something about... do you remember
infinite languages?
Do you remember why it came up that non-axiomatic math was important? I think it was...
We were talking about if math could be a universal language, then he went to aliens perceive different things.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess. I think it's in a way it's a universal language in the same way that, I guess in the same way English is, like anyone could learn it if they spoke the language. So you were saying like red and blue paint can mix and make purple, but aliens might not see that. But they would still have the concept of 2 plus 1 equals 3. Like you could go to the apple example, or if they're Martians, you could do rocks or something. Like they're going to have countable items of some sort, even if it's not visual. So in that way, it is kind of a universal language, but you have to learn the language, I suppose. So I can imagine someone who doesn't know mathematics, but
yeah. The thing is, though, if the aliens didn't overlap in our royal space at all, they might not have like rocks or any countable objects. Everything might just kind of look like a flow, and so they don't differentiate boundaries or anything.
But there would be objects that they're sensing. So like, even not talking visual, they're talking like auditorily. I can count 3 snaps there, 2 plus 1. Or if I'm talking about smells, I can see like, okay, I smelled pancakes and I smelled bread. And then
what if they have
meat?
None of the 5 senses we have?
I can do okay if they have sonar. There's like 1 click, 2 click, and then there's a 3rd click. It's like there are countable things, I think, in every, even just time. Like if they have any sort of time sense, then there must be units of time that they could agree to measure.
So, but these are all based in our royal space, right? So, but if they didn't overlap at all in our royal space, like if you imagine the universe like water moving around you, and then like you're an alien and you see the universe as just water, and like the currents of water are all continuous, and then like food might be like going in front of a specific current, and shelter might be like, going underneath a specific current, but it's like hard to differentiate when what one current is and what one current isn't. It's all kind of just the same.
Like
I think-
with the sonar or with counting with the aliens, the difference is they say in between the counts. We have pauses. They won't have pauses. It'll be one constant flow, like water. Like
Yeah,
Rishi
it's like
said.
if I snap and that snap extends to infinity.
Sure,
But that's with
I
everything.
mean, I was to say there's going to be changes that they could say, okay, there was this change, and then this third change. I guess I can't. I guess it's possible that they might have such different senses that they don't have any countable objects or countable realities that they can work with. But I just can't imagine it. I guess, which in a way makes sense. Like I can only imagine, even your metaphor of water. That's very much tactile. It's very much
Yeah,
visual. It's
exactly.
like you're describing it in the language of senses because it's what we have. And I guess what's in your
It's
head
like saying,
I can't get it into my head.
yeah, it's like saying try to imagine a new color.
Yeah. I can try.
Rishi, I said that to you one time, and you told me you could imagine a new color.
I think if I sit down long enough, maybe.
How? How is that possible?
I mean, we discussed this yesterday. Like, scientists just created a new color called olo that has never been seen before in nature because our basically in our eyes we have cones for red, blue, and green, right? But the red and green cones they overlap for 85% of incoming light. So when you look at something in nature, there's no wavelengths in nature that just activate the green cones in your eyes. So what scientists did is they used lasers to specifically stimulate those green cones. And so they created a new color, Olo, the greenest green you could ever see.
That's
And so I think if I sat down for long enough and I thought about that and I could like think about something like that and create a new color, you know?
Oh, focusing on like stimulating synapses in your brain, like new patterns.
Yeah, like somehow I could create a new color, you know?
when you visualize, like if I close my eyes and visualize the color red,
Mm.
how does that correlate with when I am looking at something red in terms of like brain activation? Is it like I'm activating my eye, not my eye neurons, but I suppose the ones that they're connecting to, and I'm playing a visual that's not from my eyes, but from like a different input, so to speak, where you're just like,
Yeah, it's your visual cortex. So anything can, when you think about your senses in general, you know, your brain actually doesn't sense anything. It does not sense a single thing. Your eyes work by converting the light that it sees, the photons, into electrical signals. But the electrical signals start right here. So your brain itself doesn't get any information other than electrical signals. So your senses, your touch, your taste, your sight, everything is just electrical signals that your brain has to somehow interpret. And it's like a master at interpreting those. But that does mean also that other parts of your brain can activate these electrical signals in your visual cortex, and you can recreate it when you close your eyes, when you dream. It's that's actually one of the leading theories about why we dream, because your brain essentially changes so fast through neuroplasticity that if you spend 12 hours or 8 hours sleeping, your visual cortex could start shrinking. And so one of the reasons that scientists hypothesize you dream is so that your visual cortex remains activated and that it doesn't shrink.
it's really interesting. So, like in a sense, then every one of my everything I could potentially see is in my brain. It's like there's a
Yeah,
language already built into my brain, and I can make every single word with those letters. So
exactly.
that special green that you can only get with that one particular laser, that's already in my brain.
Uh-huh.
That's fascinating.
And think about that for entirety of reality as well. Because if everything in reality is what you construct it to be, then reality can be whatever you make it with neurotech. You know, you just try different things and create a new reality.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, reality meaning the senses, so you can imagine everything, you can imagine
Yeah.
every possibility, but it wouldn't change what's outside of you. It's only
Yeah.
changing what's inside.
But what's the difference between imagining something and it being real? I've always thought about this. Like in meditation, I I really try to focus on a certain feeling, like feeling part of my stomach or feeling my rib cage. And I have a belief, I have a feeling that I can. But is that just a belief? Is it my imagination? Or is it real? Or is there really a difference? Even with neurotech, if I put neurotech on and I can stimulate myself flying through the space, what's the difference? Do we really know about what is real or what is imaginary?
I mean, that comes down to assumptions. We have to make some fundamental axioms that we base our life upon. And one of them is that there is a material reality outside of our brain. But, very well could be false. We just have to gather more knowledge to know.
What's the purpose of assuming that there is a material reality?
Because the consequences of not assuming it are much more severe than the consequences of assuming it. And so it's what Jason said basically. If you're wrong about free will, then it's so much worse than if you're wrong about determinism.
Not to mention that if you assume reality isn't real, chances I would predict you would get hit pretty hard with reality. If I try and walk through that door instead of opening it, I don't know for sure, but chances are I'm going to run into it. So in a sense, reality just imposes itself upon us. We can't not disbelieve it because it just continually makes itself obvious. But I don't know. It's hard to prove, but it's not easy to believe in. Or sorry, hard to prove, not hard to believe in.
No, it's hard for me to believe in.
Really?
There's so many possibilities. Genuinely,
yeah.
anything could be happening. I could just be a brain in a jar in a lab that they're stimulating different electrical impulses. I see there being
You
a
could
benefit.
already be in neurotech.
I already could be in neurotech, precisely. But I guess the main benefit is I have a hard time fully assuming, I guess, anything, but you need assumptions and axioms to learn, but question them and understand them. I don't know. Rishi, how do you feel about the statement, what is real and what is not real?
I go back and forth on this. I think there is a reality outside. Because, okay, even if everything is kind of a just simulation in my brain, there's still a brain somewhere in material reality. Even if things are a computer simulation, there's still electrons moving in a computer somewhere in material reality that correspond to this simulation. So everything has a real correspondence, even if this is a giant simulation. Even if it's 3 simulations deep. Suppose there's some people at the very top, and they simulate something, and then those people simulate something, and then those people simulate something. All of those are electrons moving in a little computer. And so even if I move around, electrons are moving somewhere up there in the actual reality. So I think everything has a real correspondence.
Is the actual reality you speak of objective reality?
Objective reality, yes.
How do you define that?
You can't.
Okay, yeah, I guess because we're so far down. Going back to the alien example, if worlds have different physics, I can't help but think there's a completely different possibility that we're just blind to see, that there isn't always a cause and effect to material reality in this. Maybe, I guess this has to... Couldn't there be a completely different reason?
What do you mean?
There's no material reality. I guess if there was no material reality, would we be here?
I think we need all cosmic knowledge for that one.
Okay.
I don't know, Jason, what do you think?
I think in a sense, I would just define real as the stuff that is all this stuff. I don't need it to be. Well, let's say I'm a brain in a vat. I would still say I would still define reality as this, the wood of this desk, the flesh and bones kind of stuff. even if it's made up or whatever, if it's just a brain in a vat somewhere, still assigning the word reality to it still has genuine correspondence. Um, when I look at the word objective and how to define that, I think what I would define it as is, this is maybe not a very strict definition, but I think it generally works, is it's something that can be observed or measured by not just one person, but by not just one subject, but by multiple, so it becomes objective. Um, which, makes it kind of tough when you talk about something like anger, for example, where I can say I'm angry, but I can't really explain that to someone else because they might be thinking of like, or I'll use a different example. Color is a different one. What I see as red, you might see the color red and visualize it differently.
Yeah.
So then, in a sense, then red isn't objective, but also maybe it's only redness that's not objective. But either way, it's like it's usually a pretty good definition to say objective means that the people outside can see it. So I guess when I say reality, I'm saying yes, this stuff, but I'm also assuming that other people have consciousness just like me. I think that's part of why I think it's part of what I would say reality is. So then maybe with the brain in the vat, you lose something of reality because other people are no longer real in a sense. But it's not that they're not real; it's that other people aren't what I've defined them as, which is same as me, other conscious, other important things to consider.
They're real in some part of your brain, right? Just not
Yeah,
you.
yeah. They would still be within reality, but by calling them people, like let me try to describe this. So okay, let's say people aren't. Let's say everything is deterministic except for me. Like I'm the only person who is an actual person. Other people would still be real, and that they would still be flesh and bone. They can look at me, touch me, whatever. But they aren't calling them people wouldn't be accurate because they don't have the same consciousness. So then there's no real people besides me, but there are what I call real people who are still real objects. It's a similar thing with the brain in the vat, where they're still within what I would call reality, this stuff that appears to me to be reality. But calling them people might not be real people, I suppose.
Huh. Interesting.
I don't know.
How would you define a person?
That's a tough one. I think this is a very idiomatic definition, but I think to me it's compelling to say a thing that has free will. I look at the world a lot through an ethical lens. So I would say people that are can make moral choices, I guess, would be what a person is. In some ways, it's just like I suppose people that have the same kind of experience as me, but that's very vague. So my specific answers, which are probably wrong, and my vague answer that's probably not helpful. There you go. I don't know. What do you think? What's a person?
I think persons, like how you guys were talking about concepts and words based on other assumptions. I think a person's just kind of imaginary concept we use. And where a person ends and begins is all arbitrary to me. Because
I agree with that.
yeah.
Is Tyler here? I wasn't sure.
I was wondering the same thing. Tyler, are you here?
Or I was having trouble unmuting. Yeah, I've been here. I've been enjoying listening.
Oh, okay.
No way.
I've kind of,
Wow.
I've kind of, well, no, I've kind of been like overwhelmed today. So it's nice been like meditating, just like listening to the talk.
Good.
Yeah,
Um,
do it.
Tyler, I don't think you met Jason. So, Jason, this is Tyler. Tyler, Jason.
Yeah,
Nice to meet you, Tyler.
nice to meet you. Yeah, I'm just in the car. Look, I'm enjoying a nice view.
Oh,
Mhm.
nice.
But But yeah.
Yeah. Well, Tyler is a artist as well, and Jason's a writer. So, uh, yeah,
Yeah,
good to meet
perfect.
you.
Yeah,
How about you?
I've been. What are you gonna say?
What have you been up to?
I've been working a lot, like pretty much every day. So I've been like it's like stressed out with that and like a few things, and kind of having this weird artist block, like, but also having like 10 ideas at once. So I'm just like, it's so weird.
Wait, how do you have both an artist block and a bunch of ideas?
I don't know. Like it's this really interesting thing. Like I want to do all these different projects, but
Uh,
I can't. I feel like I can't sit down for the time to do them. Like I just want to. I just imagine them, but I know I can't go through them.
huh.
Have you thought about
It's
making an art piece about that?
That'd be interesting.
You gave him another idea.
I don't know. What would that art piece look like, Max?
Describe to us how you're feeling and the being blockade between all these ideas but unmotivated to do any of them. The feeling that you invoke, whatever that looks like to you on paint.
I haven't actually have an idea when you say that. Like this, like me hiding behind this big blockade, and like oh, there's all this like color behind it, and I'm kind of just like hiding from it.
Hmm. I can
Maybe
see.
I'll actually do that because I did buy some canvases 2 days ago.
Man, yeah, I would like to see that. Let me know if you do
Me
that.
too.
Yeah, I'll have to send a picture if I do.
Hmm.
What do you
Rishi.
guys think about AI in terms of writing and art?
Mm.
So I've tried to get AI to write a story for me.
Uh,
Um, its writing is not good at all, though.
uh,
It's really cliche.
uh,
So, like the story I had was, I didn't give it that interesting of a prompt, but what it came up with was about the least interesting that I could come up with. Because it's just because the way it works is it just copies what it's seen. So it's by nature going to be cliche. Um, so then I tried to get it to edit what it wrote and started to lose track of causality and logic. And so then it just the story became worse as I tried to get it to be um, a better story. Um,
uh,
and it's not what it's made for. So maybe if you made a large language model specifically for writing short
yeah.
stories, then it would work better. But at least the basic ones are not very good, in my opinion. But
But
yeah, I don't know. I don't know about art as much.
ethically, let's say there's AIs that can write better than any human now.
Mhm.
Would you be upset ethically, or would you say that's for the best?
I think I would think of it similar to how I think of advertisements, where they're not a problem if they were done right, but most people aren't going to
Mm,
use them right. Um, so I think one thing I would think of is why would you want AI to write a story? Like there are plenty of artists who will enjoy writing a story, but
mm,
you're gonna AI do it because what? It's cheaper, I suppose. Which I guess it's I don't want to spend money either, so I guess fair enough. But I guess it feels like a waste of humans to not like you can say like if we automate, what's a profession? Plumbers, for example. That'd be really hard to automate. But let's say you can automate some profession that people don't want to do, or like a garbage truck driver, or a semi truck. If we automate stuff like that, there's problems with that. The economy, like people are out of a job. There's problems with it, but it's not as much of a problem as like let's let's automate hobbies like playing tennis. Like what if we automated tennis? Like no, like it doesn't make sense because humans like tennis. Humans like writing stories. So why would you need to automate it? Um, but I guess if someone wants to do it, I can't really say you're wrong for doing it. It's definitely it's not definitely cheaper, but perhaps in the future it could be cheaper.
mm.
But then that's not the point of stories, anyways, in my mind. So I don't know.
I think it comes down to what is the purpose of writing. Like, what is your purpose of writing? Like, why do you write?
I think one of the thoughts I had when I was deciding, like after high school, what I want to do with the rest of my life, kind of question, um, is I don't think most of the problems that are significant are material problems. And actually, writing has actually helped me disagree with that a little bit more than I used to. But I used to be very like mind and body are different things, and what matters is the soul, not the body. Um, Less so now, but still to some extent, yeah. So I guess I could go into a profession like mechanical engineering was one idea I had, but that's not going to really fix the fundamental problems. So instead, I decided to go into writing, which is going to be more. Um, I guess it's just meaningful, is I think the way I would describe it, and I would link that to language is by nature about conveying meaning. It's about being meaningful. So writing is meaningful. Um, I think that's what I would
So
say.
AIs wouldn't really take away from your writing. You could still create meaningful writing. It wouldn't really be
That's
matter to
kind of,
you.
yeah. That's true. If a AI was really good at drafting, I might use it. But the problem is in writing, every word has meaning. So well, I'll say it this way: every chapter has a meaning, every paragraph has a meaning, every sentence has a meaning. Within that sentence, every word changes the meaning. So every word is important. If I have an AI write it, then it's no longer my meaning. It's not me saying things, it's the AI saying things. And I can edit what it says and be like, okay, make it, I'm going to make what you wrote my own. But it's still, I don't know. It seems like you would lose something if you did that to me.
Mm.
Um,
Hmm.
and you, like I said, you could use it for drafting because there are a lot of arbitrary choices and there's a lot of grammar choices. Every time I type out THE space, I mean, I could, I guess I could have an AI do that, um, but I suppose I could when I type the instead of my or a, it's like there's different ways of I don't know. Every word changes the meaning, so it's not like you
Hmm.
can just have the AI write it without changing meaning, uh, unless you go through and change every word. But then you may as well write it yourself then. So
I also think socially kind of so Max, I used to agree with you a lot that like it's good and I think it's still good, it democratizes abilities and stuff like that. But I do think there's a fundamental difference between an AI that creates art and a calculator. Like a lot of people would say that a lot of people who agree with the idea that AIs are good for things like art would say that it's no different from a calculator. It's reducing a task that is tedious and making it more so that we can get to the end goal. But a calculator is different because everyone who says 1 plus 1 will get the same answer too. But everyone who writes about a specific thing will not write the same end product. And so when we atrophy that kind of thinking muscles of mathematics in using a calculator, it's not as bad because anytime we even if we were to think about 1 plus 1 or the calculator was to think about 1 plus 1, we'd get the same thing. But by atrophying those creative muscles, that's creating something completely different. Now I don't have the capacity anymore to really think about something, to really express something. Instead, I'm relying on a middleman, and they might not express it as the same way that I would have expressed it.
and
It's not objective. Yeah.
going back to what I was saying about AI writing being tending to be really cliche, it's
Uh,
that same like flattening process that you're kind of talking about, where we all have our own like I'm going to write about this way, you're going to write about this way, but what AI will do is it'll flatten all that into just cliche, and it's cliches are, um, I guess, I don't think they're good. I could think about it more and give a good response as to why I don't think they're good, but I think it's kind of just it lacks personality, it lacks um, meaning. I guess I don't know.
mm,
I just don't think the AI is advanced enough. If we could get large
yeah.
Yeah,
language learning models, we place them in every house across the country. And now they're learning from every aspect of your bedroom to your homework to your the food in your kitchen to the dirty dishes, everything. they would be faced with a lot of human problems, and we could start getting more human-like artwork. And as they get more advanced and more ingrained in us, I think they would do exceed in every way.
You know how
The
you
problem
could.
I think is they are writing human-like art and human-like speech. The problem is they're just copying humans,
Yeah.
and it's not like we have individual chat GPTs everywhere. I mean, there are a few models, but all the models are aggregates of humans. They're all flattening of human um, variants into one system. Um,
Mm.
and if you just want to have the, the LLM follow around one person and be particular in that sense, you're still just duplicating. It doesn't add anything. You're just copying. And then also, you may as well just have that person do it because they're already there.
I mean, but you know what would fix that problem? Neurotechnology. Because you could have the large language model just learn based on your brain, and then it could produce things exactly like you would. So you just assign it a task, say, write about this, and then it would create it the same exact way you would create it.
Yeah. But then why wouldn't you just create it yourself?
Like, suppose you want to do a bunch of things but don't have time. Like, I
Yeah.
have 10 ideas for artwork, just like
Wait, like
Tyler,
Tyler,
Yeah.
but I
yeah.
don't have the
That's
time.
fair.
So I set 10 different instantiations of it and
Yeah.
do it all at the same time.
Hmm.
And I do the one that
I
I
like
like the
that.
most. Yeah.
Wait, Tyler, what's your opinion on AI artwork with writing and art?
I think with artwork, it's definitely more useful because like I watch AI like videos all the time, and it just inspires me so much because it's just such cool art, and like you could use that to like maybe like trace stuff or whatever. But I think maybe with writing, like how Rishi you're saying, maybe you could use it to um like create characters. Like you could create 10 characters with like deep storylines, and then let's say you like drop a collection of books, uh and then you drop one cool book about the story about people, and then you drop 10 more books that are like each character has their own full story that AI kind of could help you write out, and then you can go through and sort it out, edit it, um but maybe like to just have so much content fast, it could be useful. But I definitely think with our artwork, it's definitely more useful. But then it like offers the question of like, oh, like
Who's credited
critics
it?
saying like that's not original and whatever.
Hmm.
I mean,
But
purely
oh, you
But
can go ahead. I was just gonna say I think it's just cool to make cool artwork.
yeah,
I like
very
that
true.
about you, Tyler. Passion.
Yeah.
If I was to approach it from like the consumer side, I think there could be some benefits. Like I really love like sitcoms, right? And like sitcoms like The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air are really good. And when I reach the end of the sitcom, I always wish there's more of that sitcom. Uh, but a great way to do that might be that everyone has their like kind of individual brain AI, and it analyzes what they liked about that sitcom and the sitcom itself, and it creates new episodes that they would really like based on that.
Yeah.
And
It could
And
imagine
I
it could
would
make the whole show
yeah, that's true too. They could make the whole show.
you type in
with
something
just
like you want to learn quantum mechanics, and it finds patterns in your brain and what you enjoy and what is engaging to you. Then it gives you whatever sitcom or whatever media that will consistently get you engaged for the longest period of time while teaching you quantum mechanics as the goal.
Yeah, I mean that would be cool.
Yeah.
it sounds a lot like Skylar's when Skylar was talking about his AI software.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, I think he would have some good ideas about it.
Uh, So, Jason, for reference, Skylar's another, one of our members, and he has like a business right now. It's startup, and it does kind of screen recording for websites where uh, essentially like 95% of websites will track your mouse whenever you log on to them because they want to see what the problem spots are and where people click the most and how people are using the website. But usually that's a manual process where someone goes through and sees the heat maps and everything. He's using AI to automate that. And so I think that's a very interesting use.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, or what if you could see at like what points people might not like what you're writing or whatever?
Oh, interesting. That could be interesting. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yep. A
Huh.
lot of authors have beta readers, which are people who just read through and give their feedback. It's like, oh, this part I was bored. This part I was excited. This part I was this. And the writer goes through and is like, okay, why were they bored in this chapter? I thought that was super cool. And they think about it for a while and come up with the problem.
Did you have beta readers for your book?
I have a couple people I know will do it. Um, but it, I have, I could always use more, I suppose.
Mm.
Uh, One of the authors I listened to, um, has like, at the beginning of this book, he has like the acknowledgments and he has like lists out, it's got to be like 20 or 30 beta readers. And then he has gamma readers too. So it's like, he's
Huh.
got like a second wave, but he's got like a whole, he made his own publishing company and everything. So he's a lot further along than I am, let's say. So, so you could have a lot and it would be really beneficial, but you could also only have a couple and you'll be fine. And there will
Do you
be,
try to get beta readers that are most representative of what you think your audience will be, or do you just go for anyone that will read it?
I mean, I'm beggars can't be choosers, so I'm just going for whoever reads it, I suppose. Yeah, but I'm on another Discord server, and it's a fantasy writers Discord server. So I've got a couple of people from there who are familiar with the genre and who are also writers, so they'll be able to spot things that are and be able to articulate them in a language that I know well, and hopefully they'll be give some good feedback. That's not just because I suppose you could be too familiar with the genre or too familiar with writing, and have it change the way you view the book in a way that isn't representative for readers. But I think for the most part, they're good people to have reading, and they're interested in reading it because they are also writers, and I'm reading books also. So
Hmm. In the coming years, how do you believe that AI is going to change our society with media, Rishi? The next like 5 years,
Mm.
roughly.
With neurotech or without neurotech?
How AI is going to change it in the next 5 years, whatever you
Just
believe.
AI. Mm.
I mean, isn't AI neurotech? It's the same thing.
I think there'll be a lot more supply, but the quality might not be as good. It'll just be so much supply that people have to like watch and read a little bit of AI stuff, and maybe there'll be some good stuff, but it's just gonna be so much. It's gonna be a lot, like a big surplus.
yeah.
Dead internet theory, everything's just the bots.
I mean, that's kind of goes back to what we were talking about. Like, what are the advantages of using AI in art? Is you can pump stuff out faster, but it might not be as good quality. So watch out for that.
If
I
we
think maybe
imagine
socially, like,
if we imagine a social media, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, now that there's infinite possibilities for if you want to read a book, if you want to write something, or scroll on Instagram, like what would users even choose?
what do you mean?
If you're saying the internet becomes like fully so much supply of AI, that means the
Mm.
users have like endless options. Do you think it would like prey on their weaknesses or try to help
I
them?
mean, think about this. Your social media algorithm already does that. TikTok or Instagram, the algorithm already pumps you things that it thinks you'll like. So now it's just a matter of that connecting with some content generation algorithm, and it just creates things you like. So whatever your feed is right now, it'll be even more of that, just not created by people.
That's gonna be so powerful, so evil in a way.
I mean, it'll also know how much of your feed you like to be kind of randomized, because you might see something outside of your normal feed, and you click on that. Like if I always watch science videos, and then one day I see like a I don't know, like something historical. I just curiosity. I might click on that historical thing, but so it'll know how much randomization too you want, and it'll just perfect your feed in a way.
Hmm. It is a lot like Skylar's algorithm. It's gonna have so much control.
Yeah. I'm surprised they haven't done it already because these social media companies have so much data on us, on the content, on everything. They could literally just create only AI, you know, app.
Is the technology there yet? Like, we
I
were
think
trying to
so.
generate.
It just costs a lot of money to get a bunch of servers and run a huge algorithm. But they have the money. I'm sure they're working on it. Probably.
Yeah, me too. Jason, so what are you working on now with writing?
Working on drafting a book. Got a little bit into it, but just getting the words on the page so that I can edit them.
Hmm.
Still in the rough draft section.
What's
By
it about?
drafting, is it like the rough outline?
So it's not an outline. It's like I'm writing like sentences and paragraphs that would
Oh.
theoretically end up in the actual book, although I'll probably edit them to be very different than what they are now because they're not the best right now. But just getting all the words like, so I have like all the chapters filled out, and it's not just like, okay, I have a bunch of plot points and I have a bunch of character ideas and some world building done. It's like I actually have some text I can work with and start editing. Yeah, that it does take a while to do drafting, and I think it's my least favorite part of writing is the drafting section. So kind of in the grind right now, but
Mm. What's your most favorite part?
I think probably the bigger ideas, the world building and kind of
Ah,
outlining everything. Like the first part where you first get the idea and you're like, all right, how can I turn this like kind of seed of an idea into some more structure? Um, I think the more I've written, the more I've appreciated the later sections where you're just editing and
Mm.
really diving into the prose on like a word by word level. Like, how can I make this sentence just a little bit better? Which is, yeah. But yeah, it's the middle section where I just have to make up stuff again and again and again. That's tough, but they all have their pros and cons.
I like that drive you have. But I have to get
Thank you.
going. It was really nice speaking to you all. Is there anything else
Yeah, no
before I go?
worries. No, I'll probably get going as well, and I know Jason, you probably got to sleep. It's pretty late over there.
Yep, I
Yeah.
stayed up later than I wanted, but that's
It was so nice meeting you, Jason.
Yeah, it was great meeting you. I hope to see you next time
Yeah.
too. This is fun.
Wait,
Was
what
that?
state are you in, Jason?
Minnesota.
Oh, nice.
But I also wake up pretty early for the manufacturing job, so
Hmm.
it's yeah.
Cool, cool.
Venture
All right,
forth.
venture forth then. Yeah.
Yeah.
See ya.
Venture forward.